All right, so you want to get right to the heart of things, right? You want to really understand something without wading through a whole bunch of extra stuff.
Absolutely. I think we all do.
That's what we try to do here. And today we're taking a deep dive into a pretty unique story, a parable that one of our listeners actually shared with us.
Yeah, we have excerpts from this text called Deples.
Which basically translates to the pasted text.
Right, something like that. And it includes Drana, the tale of the turkey, or you could say the turkey prince. It's a story by Rabbi נחman of Breslov.
Exactly. And just on the surface, it's such a striking image. This prince, who's totally convinced he's a turkey, lives under a table naked, eats scraps. The king is beside himself. Traditional medicine hasn't helped at all. It almost sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. You get this sense of utter helplessness, like every normal approach has failed. It really shows you how deeply rooted this belief is in the prince's mind.
And then this wise man shows up.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting was how he first approaches the situation. He doesn't try to argue with the prince or force him to change. He takes off his clothes, gets under the table with the prince, and starts eating scraps too. Can you imagine?
It's this radical act of empathy. Instead of trying to impose a cure from the outside, he steps right into the prince's reality and connects with him on that level.
So the prince sees this other turkey, and as you'd expect, they have a little conversation. The wise man just says, "I am a turkey," and the prince says, "Me too." And they just hang out there together for a while in this shared delusion. It makes you think about how powerful it can be to just meet someone where they are, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. By doing that, by meeting the prince right where he's at, the wise man builds this foundation of trust and mutual recognition. It seems like that has to happen before any kind of change is even possible.
And it's from this place of shared reality that the wise man starts to work his magic. He starts with something that seems really small, a shirt. He offers it to the prince and says something like, "Hey, you think a turkey can't wear a shirt? You can be dressed and still be a turkey."
It's brilliant. He's addressing the limitations the prince has imposed on himself without directly challenging his core belief. He's saying, look, your self-perception doesn't have to dictate your actions.
Then he offers him pants and eventually more clothes, always with that same reassurance. It's such a clever way to gently nudge the boundaries of this fixed idea. And it wasn't just about the clothes, was it?
No, he does the same thing with food. He brings the prince some actual human food and uses the same logic. You think if you eat good food, you stop being a turkey. He's showing the prince that his identity isn't tied to these external behaviors.
And finally, the setting changes. They move from under the table to sitting at the table. The wise man is basically saying you can be a turkey and still sit at the table. It's a gradual progression physically and symbolically.
Exactly. Each little step is a victory, subtly expanding the prince's understanding of what it means to be a turkey, slowly guiding him back to who he really is. And the story ends with the prince making a complete recovery thanks to this patient and understanding approach.
So the big takeaway here is this idea that you can help someone change deeply held beliefs, not by force or argument, but through empathy and by gradually bringing them back to reality. It's about finding that common ground first.
And this raises a question for you to think about. Have you ever encountered someone who had a belief that seemed really unshakable or strange? What small empathetic gestures could you use to connect with that person and maybe introduce a different perspective, just like the wise man did with the turkey prince? It's a really fascinating way to think about how beliefs can change.
It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Let us know what small steps you might take to bridge the gap between deeply held beliefs and a different reality. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into some fascinating source material.
See you then.
Bye.